when I talk to people about NATO Secret Armies and Operation Gladio and stay behind the armies in Europe, they have no idea what I'm talking about, which is a little bit surprising, I guess. So could you just give me maybe a quick explanation, just exactly what is Operation Gladio, what exactly are NATO Secret Armies, and or maybe one reason why we haven't really heard about it too much?
First of all, it's very normal that people don't know what it means. Most people don't know it. In fact, when I was studying at the LSE in London in '99, that's almost 20 years ago, I contacted my professors for international history and I told them I want to research Operation Gladio, and they didn't know what it was. And that was the professors in London. So it's, they said I've heard about it once, but I don't know any details. So the basic facts are these. In the year 1990, the Italian Prime Minister Giulio Andreotti at the time was forced to confirm that a secret army existed in Italy with the name Gladio. That was a massive military scandal. At the time, most people didn't pay attention because it was in the exact year that Saddam Hussein, dictator of Iraq, invaded Kuwait. So everybody was looking at the Gulf and nobody was looking at the Italian scandal of Gladio. What happened then was that the Italian Senate made an investigation into the topic, and they found out that secret armies under the code name of Stay Behind armies existed in all countries of Western Europe, thus not only in Italy but also in France, in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Spain, in Greece, in Turkey, all over Western Europe, even in Switzerland, neutral Switzerland and Sweden, etc. And they have been set up by the British and the Americans after World War II, so following 1945 until 1990, to become active in the event of a Soviet invasion. So really they were a network of guerrilla soldiers, of special forces, trained people who had arms caches, explosives in secret places in woods. In Italy they even had them in cemeteries. And their idea was to become active only in the case of a Soviet invasion. Now, there was no Soviet invasion, and people asked, so did these secret soldiers become active at all? Because it's illegal to have a secret army, and my book, NATO Secret Armies, looks at all the details. And we now know, as historians, that some of these secret armies linked up with right-wing extremists, carried out acts of terrorism and blamed them on the political left, on the communists, just to discredit them. And we call this false flag terrorism. So this is really something for people who are interested in history, who are interested in secret warfare, but not James Bond, because James Bond is fiction. That's the cinema. This is the real stuff. And we know that the CIA and the MI6, the British and the American Secret Service, trained these groups, that the Green Berets and the SAS, the Special Air Service, so the special forces of the British and the Americans, they trained with them. And it was an anti-communist secret warfare structure.
Okay. Well, what kind of people did they recruit? I mean, were they high-level soldiers, like ex-soldiers, or were they just... Is it basically anybody that was mad enough to join them? Or
It was in Germany, they recruited former SS soldiers, which is really strange. They recruited people from Hitler's army. Why did they recruit them? Because they wanted to make sure that they were anti-communist. Okay. So they would recruit fascists as long as they were anti-communists and as long as they knew how to handle a gun. In other countries, they recruited conservatives who had nothing to do with fascism whatsoever, who were from Catholic central-leaning parties, just to make sure they didn't recruit communists. That's the only thing they didn't want to have in these secret armies.
And as a historian, with your book NATO Secret Armies, I mean, how did you get the research and get the sources? I mean, because your topic is Secret Service, so it might have been difficult to do research on it.
It was very difficult. It was my PhD. So in Switzerland, if you write a PhD, you have 3 or 4 years that you dedicate yourself to one topic, which is something very strange. Most people have a few minutes for a topic or an hour, or if they have a lot of time, they read a book for a month or something like that. I had 4 years. 4 years, every day I worked on that topic. Not even journalists have so much time today to look at the data. And that means I went through everything I could find. You know, I went through all the books, I went through all the newspaper articles, I went through all the video archives, and I collected all this data, and I piled it up. I had a file which was structured into the different country chapters: Germany, France, England, USA, Italy, Greece, Turkey. And in fact, my book is structured into countries. So that was the main structure to look at the different countries. And secondly, I looked at the different years. What happened in the 1950s, what happened in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, and the 90s. The book then ends in 1995. Basically because it's a book that looks at the 50 years after the Second World War.
That leads to the obvious question then. If it finishes in 1995, and you know, I mean, you could argue, is history repeating itself at the moment?
Yeah, that's a question many people ask. They say, well, it's very interesting that you find out about terrorism and false flag terrorism during the Cold War, but that's a long time ago. Because what I found out really was that secret services at times linked up with terrorists and carried out terrorist attacks. I mean, this is amazing. This is mind-blowing, really, because, you know, everybody has to pay taxes. Why? Because, you know, with the taxes, they, you know, build hospitals, they build roads, they support kindergartens, etc. So that, you know, everybody is fine with that. But also some of the taxes go to the military, and they say, well, what do they do with the military? Well, yeah, they protect the country. What do they do with the taxes that go to the Secret Service? Well, the Secret Service actually protects the country from evil terrorists that come from other countries. But the data that I have found is that the Secret Services and the Special Forces, that's, you know, a branch of the military and the Secret Service, that they themselves were linked to terrorism. And that is just mind-blowing. I mean, I myself was surprised, and every taxpayer should be surprised. And then, of course, my students ask me, well, okay, interesting, how about 9/11? Because 9/11 is the biggest terrorist attack ever. And in 2001, when it happened, I refused to comment, because historians, they observe for a long time before they comment. And so in 2001, didn't say anything. In 2002, I didn't say anything. They came again in 2003 and said, well, Dr. Ganser, you're a specialist in terror and international secret warfare. How about 9/11? Why don't you comment? What's your analysis? Did Bush tell the truth, or was he just lying? And what's going on? And I said, well, you know, 2003 is too early. I can't comment. 2004, I actually remember how the years passed, and in 2004 the 9/11 Commission report was published. So that's the official investigation. I bought a copy and read it with my students.
How many pages was that?
600 pages, yeah, big book. But I read it with my students. So, you know, I had a seminar at Basel University and Zurich University at the history department. And then came 2005, and I already realized that the report was really weak. You know, there's World Trade Center 7 was missing, and, you know, many very important questions from the whole 9/11 debate were not even addressed. And then in 2006, that's now exactly 10 years ago. Yes, now it's 2016. So yeah, 10 years ago, I wrote a first article in the Swiss press, and I said, we don't know what happened on 9/11. There's a bitter debate. We have 3 competing theories, and that's normal, you know, as a historian. When you approach a topic, you first of all say, okay, what are the different stories? And the first story is Osama bin Laden is responsible. That's the so-called surprise theory. Bush and Cheney couldn't do anything about it. These were 19 Muslims led by Mohammed Atta, and they attacked the United States. That's the official story. It actually has 100% coverage on BBC and CNN. And the second story, which is more covered on the internet, is the Lee Hop story. It says, yes, Bush and Cheney knew that the attack was coming. Osama bin Laden was responsible, but Bush and Cheney are also criminal. You know, so you have a criminal Osama bin Laden who sends his Muslims to attack the US. And the US government is so criminal that they think, well, that's a handy terrorist attack. We can use that. We can increase defense spending, we can attack other countries, and we can scare the whole population. So that's a so-called Lee Hop story, let it happen on purpose. And the third story is called Mihop, make it happen on purpose. And again, you can find books and web pages that support this theory. and it says Osama bin Laden. No, he had nothing to do with it. The videos where he says I did it, they were all fake. Nothing true about it. It was basically the Secret Service and mad people from the Pentagon who carried out an attack on themselves. You know, it's called inside job. So they kill 3,000 Americans and then say, well, we have to do something to protect America. And this Mihop story is the third theory. And I have to repeat here, I don't say whether Surprise, Lihop or Mihop is correct. I only say that as a scientist and as a historian, it's important to know all three stories. And it's important to find out what really happened. And
so you give equal balance to
I
them
give
all,
equal
really.
balance. I mean, I've been attacked.
Even the official one.
Yeah,
It's all
I say even the official one is okay. I mean,
Yeah.
we have to check the data and then see where the chips fall.
Yeah.
But when I published, and that's so incredible, when I published this article in the Tagesanzeiger, which is a daily newspaper in Switzerland, it was called The Bitter Debate about 9/11, and the American embassy reacted immediately and called me a conspiracy theorist. And I thought that was so insulting. I mean, how can the American embassy in Switzerland decide what Swiss historians have to research? I mean, this so-called war on terror, it's called war on terror, has been going on now for 15 years. We all live in the war on terror age. We're doing this interview under the very war on terror. Obama, who is now leaving the White House, has served 8 years as president, always in wartime. He said so. He said, I was the only president who served 8 years in wartime. What was the war? It's the so-called war on terror. When Trump comes into office on 20 January 2017, he will be again a president who serves on the war. Why? The war on terror continues. So the war is everywhere, and it really influences our lives. And that's why I urge everybody to look at 9/11, to look at the data and make up your own mind. I mean, it's a very heated debate.
So what is pushing all this all the time? From the Gladio period to now? Why is there always a push for war or a push for, armies to be doing this? Secret Service are always meddling. I mean...
It's about power.
Right.
It's about power. The idea is always to control people and to manipulate people. That's really why it's always been done. I see it that we do have to keep in mind that terrorism can be used very easily to shock people. And when people are shocked, you can move them around like sheep. It's like that. I mean, people don't, want to admit that they were shocked. But in fact, 9/11 shocked them. And when we look at the data of US soldiers who were active in the Iraq War, who served there, who killed people there, who have friends who were there, who got shot and who were injured, so, people in the war theater at the time, most of them said that they think they had to go to Iraq. Why? Because they believed that Saddam Hussein had something to do with 9/11. That's total nonsense. Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. But it just shows you that in the war on terrorism, every war, be it the attack on Iraq, be it the attack on Syria, is being sold under this very strange premise that we have to fight against terrorism. I mean, when Obama decided to bomb Syria in 2014, I think he did it because he wants to carry out a regime change to overthrow Assad. But, he said, I have to bomb Syria because Americans were beheaded there by jihadis. And so everybody in the US goes, oh, okay, there are terrorists there, so we have to bomb that country. And I just, as a historian, I can emphasize that we should be very careful with bombing other countries, because the UN Charter, that's, international law, actually forbids that one country bombs another one.
It used to mean something.
Yeah, it used to. I mean, if now Syria bombed the US, I mean, that'd be strange. Or if Iraq had attacked Great Britain in 2003, it would be, it'd be incredible.
So it ties in with, you said before that you think that you call the US an empire.
Yes.
Like, sometimes upsets people sometimes.
It upsets everybody. No, I usually say, you as a historian, I have to look at what's the most powerful country. And if you look at the members of the United Nations, we have 193 countries that are members. So that's basically 200 countries in the world. Who are these? There's Canada, there's UK, there's Switzerland, there's Austria, there's Australia, there's New Zealand, there's China. There's Japan, there's Brazil, South Africa, etc. So all these countries that we know. Now, if you look at it, and if you're just a student, you have no clue. You think all these countries are as powerful as everybody else. All are equal. But that's not the case. Out of these roughly 200 countries, one country is much more powerful than everybody else. And who's that country? It's the empire. Who's the empire? The United States. How can we measure it? We count military bases. Okay. The United States has military bases in 42 other countries. So, for instance, a military base in Guantanamo in Cuba. Now, you have to realize that Cuba has no military base in the United States. Okay. The US has a military base in Germany, in Ramstein. But Germany doesn't have a military base in the US. The United States has a military base in Afghanistan, Bagram Air Force Base, but the Afghans don't have a military base in the US, so you get the picture. And that basically means if you look at power politics, you have to talk about the US empire, and what we now have, we have a new president. We have Donald Trump. He's the new president of the empire, but if you read the European press, if you read The Guardian, or if you read The Independent, or if you watch BBC, or if you watch German or Swiss television, they will never use the term empire because they're scared. They don't want to use the term.
Do you think this is the fall of the empire with Donald Trump getting elected?
Many people have been saying the empire is about to fall because it's thoroughly corrupt with torture and Abu Ghraib and all these things.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean,
Days of Nero.
We really Days of Nero. I mean, we really have to watch very closely whether Donald Trump is going to bomb another country. That's one of the key questions that historians are interested in, because the U.S. military is by far the biggest military. It has the most money. If you take NATO figures, it's 900 billion NATO budget, and the Russian budget is 90 billion. So NATO always says, "Oh, we're scared of the Russian. We only have 900. They have 90." Okay, I mean, I think we should just all use and do some research for ourselves. And if we research 9/11, we should focus on World Trade Center 7. That's a building that was not even hit by a plane, and just Google it. Google World Trade Center 7, and there's good people in the US, like architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, around Richard Gage and other people, who really dig deep. I mean, there's a lot of Americans who don't want these wars. There's a lot of British who don't want these wars. There's people from Australia. I think John Pilcher is an Australian, excellent journalist. Or we have Seymour Hersh in the US, excellent journalist. We have Noam Chomsky in the US, excellent intellectual. So I think we should listen to these guys and not to the presidents.
So, what you see the power of the state. It can be aggressive at times. It's nearly always a corrupt, at least to most people, ordinary people. It's dangerous. I mean, it's difficult for the ordinary Joe Blogg to stick his neck out. I mean, what can ordinary people do?
I think ordinary people just first of all wake up. I mean, we usually just prefer to be asleep, but that's no cover, is it? There's no guarantee for security if you sleep. In fact, in all military drills, sleeping is not a good idea. If you sleep, it gets worse. You get into a situation that you really don't want for yourself and not for your kids. So I think it is important that in your country you really look at the situation, and that you link up across borders, people living in other countries, and exchange views and say, hey, have you heard this story about the Vietnam War? I've just read there was no Gulf of Tonkin incident, that was all lies, and have you heard this? And then people go, yeah, we know that was all lies, and then exchange information, and really we're in excellent times to do this. Excellent times. We can learn from each other. You just now came here with your camera and you put it on the internet. I mean, 20 years ago that was not possible. It was not possible. Now it's possible. Now the problem is, once you learn that there's such a lot of lies and brutality, you might get depressed. Okay, so that's just,
how do you maintain sanity in all this craziness?
Yes, you have to still believe in the true goodness of human beings, and I really do. I mean, I do think that all my friends, they don't want to kill anybody. They don't want to rape anybody. They don't want to bomb another country. They don't want to behead anybody. They just want to go out and have a drink and have a good time. Really, that's what they want to do. And so, really, most people don't want to kill anybody. So we're the majority. We are the majority. We don't want to kill anybody, and we don't want these lies all the time. And really, we need to have a look at our media system, because the media system has been feeding us lies about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and usually it's a horror story. It's usually some sort of a horror story. I mean, the Germans were told that in Serbia there are concentration camps. It just triggered the Holocaust in their mind, and then they bombed Serbia in 1999, together with President Bill Clinton from the United States. Now we know there were no concentration camps. So why did they come up? I mean, that was the German Defense Minister Rudolf Scharping and Chancellor Gerhard Schröder who came up with the story.
Yeah.
So you can ask, why did they actually talk about concentration camps in Germany? To shock the population. That was the trick.
Yeah.
And I really think we should try to overcome these tricks and just talk to our friends about it, share this information, and in the end, if you look at it very, very realistically, you can actually see that you will die anyway. I mean, the British have this excellent saying, nothing is guaranteed but death and taxes. And I love the British humor because it's so true. And so we know we're going to die. So before we die, we might as well be courageous. And I think that's the best we can do. Be courageous and talk about things that you maybe are scared to talk about. But talk about it. And talk with your friends, talk with your families, share it on Facebook, share it on YouTube, and these are interesting times.
And what about yourself, like sharing this information in academia? I mean, it must have been tough. It's not the most standardized thing to study.
It's been very hard. I mean, I'm a historian, and I will always be a historian. I will not change my profession. I teach right now at St. Gallen University. I teach a course which is called the History of Energy Systems, which means, can we leave oil and gas and transition towards renewable energies? Can we power our cars with electricity? And can we produce electricity on our roof with solar cells and all these things? I work in that a lot. And I research resource wars, because to me all these wars are basically resource wars. It's nothing to do with terrorism. That's just a pretext. And so in academia it has been very difficult to question 9/11. That has been very difficult. It has been possible to look at Nato Secret Armies. The book was translated into 10 languages, so it was a big success. And now this new field I work on with renewable energies, that's very good. That's possible. I'm always saying it depends on the topic you work on. But if you work on 9/11 and if you ask somebody, well, World Trade Center 7, was it destroyed by fire or controlled demolition? People go mad. We right now have people who are coming forward in the United States from the NIST, that's the National Institute for Standards and Technology, who say, this report, which was published on World Trade Center 7, is no science. It's no science. That's just politics. It's nothing else. It's Peter Ketchum who came forward, and so I know that some of my research fields are really hot potatoes, and others are not so hot.
So how did you get involved then from Switzerland? I mean, you don't have anything to worry here, sure, in Switzerland?
I could have just done a little bit of walking and hiking in the Swiss Alps and eat some cheese.
The quiet life.
Yes, quite. No, the thing is, I studied English and history together. So I was, if you study English at a Swiss university, you have to go to the US and to UK. And I had a very good time in the US and a very good time in the UK. And the thing is, then I got interested in world politics, and I just realized that in the UK and in the US, there's a completely different perspective at universities when you look at world politics. It's power is an issue, energy is an issue, media is an issue. It's fascinating, and I got very fascinated to look at secret warfare, because I found out that the CIA wanted to overthrow Fidel Castro in Cuba, and I thought, isn't that illegal? I was 24, I had no clue. And then I started to dig deep, and I think once you start to dig deep, it's like in the film Matrix. You take the red pill, and then I realized, there's secret warfare, there is covert action, there are secret services, there is Special Operation Command, there's the MI6, there's the CIA, there's the Direction Générale Sécurité Extérieure, that's a French secret service which blew up the Rainbow Warrior ship of Greenpeace in the Pacific and New Zealand. So I just thought this is really interesting, and I went to my professors and asked them, why don't you teach anything like that at Swiss universities? And they always said, yeah, no, it's too delicate and too complicated, or we don't have good data. And I said, okay, but if we don't have good data, you know, granted, that's true. I mean, these are secret services. They don't send you the book how they did it when they overthrew Mossadegh in Iran. But if we don't talk about it, then we pretend that this is a level of international politics which does not exist. And that's really stupid, because obviously it does exist, so we should at least try to approach the subject, you know, with historical tools. We use the data that we have. We use people who worked in the secret services and who come forward and write their memoirs, and we try to, you know, combine the data. And that's what I've done, because I have, you know, I had a feeling that next to nobody did that in Switzerland. There's not like a lot of people here in Switzerland who are specializing in secret warfare.
Okay. And just to finish off then, talking about where we are now, you've set up a peace research institute in
That's right, yeah.
Basel. Can you just give us just a minute or two to tell us about that?
In 2011, that's 5 years ago, I set up the Swiss Institute for Peace and Energy Research, CIPER. And the idea of the institute really is to look at war propaganda. So we take every war and then we say, okay, that's what the media said, that's what the politicians said, and you know, that's how the lies worked. We go through it all, and most of it is in German, I'm afraid. So
okay.
It's not a lot of data in English.
Okay.
But we've looked at Iraq, weapons of mass destruction lies. We've looked at the Syria war. We've looked at 9/11. We've looked at Afghanistan. We also did old wars like Vietnam War or the war against Serbia 99. And we try to help people understand how secret warfare works and how war propaganda works. And we hope that this is a contribution to peace. We do think that by looking at war propaganda, we can help people not to kill each other. And the second point is the energy. So it's called Swiss Institute for Peace and Energy Research. And the energy issue is that we try to find out whether we can change the whole system for 100% renewable energies, whether that's possible at all, you know, whether we can leave nuclear energy behind us, coal energy behind us, oil and gas. So these are the four old energies, and we try to leave them behind us. Is that possible? Is it not? I myself drive an electric car. I have solar cells on my roof, and I teach and research, and I'm very active in this field. And I do a lot of talks here in Switzerland for private banks, for the industry, people who build houses, and manufacturing industry, many different sorts of customers. I'm a public speaker in the private industry, and they want to know, you know, they understand that the world is changing. And they think that there's opportunities, and that sure is the case. There are opportunities.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ganser, for taking the time to